Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 561. All right, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to support and inspire new trauma therapists just starting out on the trauma-informed journey. I do that with my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0, my online courses and workshops, and the Trauma Therapist newsletter. If you're a therapist of any kind and you work with individuals who've been impacted by trauma, I invite you to head on over to my website at thetraumatherapistproject.com. That's thetraumatherapistproject.com. All right, let's get started. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I am very excited to have as my guest today, Vjosa Rizaj. Vjosa, welcome.
Hi, Guy. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, it's a privilege. I'm so excited to have you on here. So Vjosa is a psychotherapist and a consultant in domestic violence and sexual abuse. She has both an academic as well as a practical background in the field. Alongside her private practice, Vjosa has years of experience working with survivors of abuse in different clinical settings. She's currently focusing on helping survivors with these therapeutic programs to aid them after their traumatic experiences, and is on a journey to not only help survivors, but also to enrich other professionals and organizations with their knowledge and experience. All right, Vjosa, once again, welcome. Thank you so much. Before we get going here, share with our listeners where you're from originally and where you are currently.
Okay, so I'm originally from Albania. I come from all the way from Albania, and I live in London. That's England, London. Yeah, just to make it clear. I've been living in London for the past 25 years of my life. And yeah, I pretty much grew up here.
All right, awesome. So you said before we were recording here, you said you've been listening to the podcast and getting a lot out of it.
Yes.
And so, which is awesome. It makes me feel awesome. So how did you get into this field? How the heck did you get into this field?
Good question. I've always had an interest in psychology since I was a young girl, I guess. I've always been interested. It's something, that's always intrigued me, something I've always been drawn to. And I remember in school, they used to talk about counselling. And I always used to ask, what was counselling? And they said, someone to talk to. And I remember growing up in a household where you don't talk a lot, or girls don't talk. And I was always intrigued. And I'd done a little bit of research, such as asking questions, asking my teachers questions about counselling. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, I want to be a counsellor one day. I want to talk to people. I want to listen to people. And that's how it started. And then throughout secondary, I became more and more interested asking my teachers about the whole counselling process. In a weird way, my school didn't provide counselling. They just spoke about it. But my teacher, who was a health and social care teacher, she would really encourage counselling to students and say you should seek it and so on. But my school itself did not provide it for their students, which is really weird and interesting at the same time.
Where was that, in Albania?
No, London. Okay. Believe it, London. Okay. Yeah. When I was a teenager, because counselling, I guess, in those days wasn't. I guess people were still not used to it. It still wasn't introduced in schools. It's not as big as now, is it? So back then, not many schools in London would have a counsellor, therapist in their building. But I believe, obviously, now things have changed. Sure. But I just remember, I would hear the topic. To be clear, I would hear the topic of counselling because what I would study in school, they would talk about it. They would really encourage well-being. We had these days where it was all about your well-being, and that's where I would hear of counselling, therapy, psychology, and that's where I became intrigued. Okay. Just to be clear.
So where did you go to school? How did this interest how did it play out?
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, guys.
How did things evolve for you, such that you started becoming educated as a therapist?
Yeah, so secondary school, as I said, questions, asking around. And then when it was uni time to go to uni, for me, it was standard. After secondary, you go to sixth form, which is, I don't know what you call it, a college, and then a college is university, sorry. And then when I was applying, I thought I always wanted to be a lawyer. That's what I thought I was going to do, law. But then I saw psychology, and I thought, oh my God, psychology. And then I saw a course at a university, Roehampton University. They offered psychology and counselling. And I thought, oh my God, counselling. And I had applied for it. And then I got in, and then that's where my journey started. I was 18 years old, went and done psychology, counselling, didn't really, well, I didn't have experience. I had knowledge, but never had an experience. When I got into it. Yeah, I never looked back.
And how did the interest in trauma and sexual abuse happen?
It did start from the counselling course in uni, the other part, psychology and counselling, when my lecturers would talk a lot about the cases, and a lot of it was about sexual abuse, client or child sexual abuse. And I will never forget how intrigued I was, because I never knew things like that happened. As an 18-year-old, I was never exposed to stories like that. And I remember when lecturers would talk about it, even in the psychology part of it, I was always intrigued. I found it fascinating slash a little disturbing at my age, but it made me fascinated. It made me want to go and seek it more. So I was reading case studies, I was reading books on it. I just became fascinated. And very weirdly after that, I started attracting sexually abused victims, such as, friends, or maybe colleagues later in life, or just even strangers. I felt like I was attracting sexually abused victims, and
Do you hold on one second? Do you mean professionally while you were seeing clients, or just in your life?
No, in my personal life, sorry,
Okay.
to be clear, in my personal life. And this is why it's so interesting. And I had once a lecturer say it, just in our lecture, and this is why I knew I had to specialize in this field. She said, you will know which area you want to go into. You will know which area you want to specialize into, because you will attract certain people in your life. And I thought, oh, wow. And I thought, okay, wow, it's my calling, sexual abuse, to specialize in this area. And bear in mind, it's not something, again, I've been exposed to. I haven't heard in my personal life. It's just I started university. I'd done a course in psychology and counselling. My lecturers would use examples of child sexual abuse. And I just became intrigued and fascinated, rather. And then I just started attracting sexually abused victims in my life. And I thought, I thought it was my calling. And then I went and studied, and then finally done another master's in understanding sexual abuse and domestic violence. I'll stop there.
Okay. So you did all the studying. At what was your first job or clinical setting where you started working with this population?
Yes, so it was in a centre, which I won't disclose too much, but it was for women, a centre for women who've been sexually abused and who've experienced domestic violence. I won't go into it too much. So I was volunteering there as a trainee counsellor, and that's where I started seeing my clients or clients from that background. And I just remember, it was just so natural to me to be in the room to work with these clients. And back to my thing about it being my calling, it was just so natural, and I just knew this was for me. I'm meant to be in this specialism. So yeah.
So talk a little bit more about that. I mean, because it's one thing, as we all know, to study something, and it's another, especially trauma and sexual abuse, to study that, and then to be in a position where you're working with someone. Given the fact that you said it was your calling, I imagine it wasn't always easy.
No,
I mean,
not at all.
What was it like for you as a woman to be working with other women who'd had that experience?
At the beginning, it was hard. I think, as I said, those stories sometimes in the beginning disturbed me. It disturbed me. I just never knew there was a world out there like like what I was hearing. It was really hard. It was really hard. And how I handled that was exposing myself to more case studies, more stories, reading. And I thought, oh no, I can't get any more disturbed. But I read even more disturbing stories. But the more I read it, the more I found it fascinating. And I thought I would think about the victims. How are they okay? How do they function afterwards? And I think my interest, my eagerness to just understand their psyche afterwards kept me going, because it's not an easy area. It's not for everyone. That's something I've learned, and I actually train other professionals, and their reactions or what they say, you can tell it's not something for everyone. So it is very difficult. But for me, what kept me going is I think my overall interest in that area. I just, again, the word I keep using, fascinated, how someone can experience this trauma and function well. Some of them function very well, and well, most of them function well, and just understanding their psyche after that trauma, and I found fascinating. So that kept me going. I do think you have to have an interest in this area, or you just can't do it. It's not for everyone. That's
Right.
what I've learned.
I mean,
So,
in addition or along with that interest, where do you think this desire to help, quote unquote, however you want to define that, help these individuals came about? Where does that come from for you, do you think?
just help in general, or help these survivors?
Help women who've been sexually assaulted, sexually abused.
I think in general, knew I always wanted to help others. I think me being me as a person, I always go for the maybe complex thing, or the thing that not everyone's going for. I went for this area because, again, it's difficult, it's a challenge, it's quite fascinating. It's not your general depression, anxiety. Of course, there's that element, but I wanted to go for the most complicated one. I guess that's how I saw it. So that's where my desire is to really help them. Just live a fulfilling life after that experience. Sorry.
Well, let me ask you this, Vjosa. What do you think it is about yourself that allows you to get in there and work with these women to help the healing process begin?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I guess all of this that I'm talking about in myself allows me to hold a space for these victims, a really authentic space, a genuine or space for them, because I want to hear their story. I want to be there and hear their story and help them. I think that's what it is about me, and that's what clients pick up from me, that I want to hear the story, I want to help. And usually survivors pick up things like that very quickly. Who wants to help them? Who can they trust? Who is safe? And I guess because I genuinely want to, I am fascinated, I want to understand. I think these victims pick that up. And does that make sense?
It does, yeah. There's a thought amongst a lot of lay people, I think, when it comes to the topic of sexual abuse or domestic violence. We'll say domestic violence. And there's a thought like, how could that person stay in this? Why aren't they leaving? And I'm wondering, when you first started into this field, when you first started seeing clients, did you have that thought? Did you share with us what it was like for you in the beginning, and maybe what you learned, a little bit about what you learned in terms of what your thoughts about some of these clients were? And I know it's hard to generalize, but that's what I'm asking you to do right now.
Absolutely. It's great to use that example of why doesn't she just leave? That was exactly my mindset in the beginning when I started. It will all be resolved if she leaves. And then I got to learn that's the most dangerous thing for a woman in a domestic violent relationship. Leaving is actually the most dangerous thing she could do for herself. And usually women who leave are the most risk when they leave the relationship, when they leave the relationship. And when I learned that, I will never forget till this day when I heard my lecturer talk about that. I thought, wow, I've got it all wrong, absolutely wrong. So I guess learning, hearing other professionals, hearing people who've worked with survivors for years and years, hearing that was very, well, refreshing. I've never heard such a thing. I thought if you leave, that's how you resolve it. But hearing that it's the most dangerous time for them, it opened my eyes, and it opened my eyes how complex these two areas are: sexual abuse, domestic violence. And it just made me want to go and seek more information, learn more. And that's why my background, as you can see, I've studied so much. I feel like I had to understand, I had to study it before I really went out there in the world and worked with these clients, because it's not easy and quite complex. Until this day, 2021, you hear other professionals say, but why don't they just leave? And I have to train them to tell them why they shouldn't leave, or why you can't.
If they shouldn't leave, well, I'm hearing you say a couple of things. You're saying if they leave or when they leave, that they're at the most risk for further harm during that time. But what are they supposed to do if they're not supposed to leave or get out? I mean, my thought would be if they did leave, they were supposed to have obviously a plan, a safe place to go to.
Of course.
But are you saying they shouldn't leave?
No, not at all. It depends on the client. Yeah, thank you. It depends on the client. If the client, as I have, if my client presents that she wants to leave, we do with my survivors, I always do risk assessments every session. We create a safety plan, and in that safety plan, we go through so many checks, and it's revised before she leaves. But it's the I was trying to answer my mindset in the beginning of why doesn't she leave? And sometimes leaving, not all survivors, but most of them, when they leave, or it's usually the most dangerous part. It's the riskiest parts for them. So it has to come from the client. If she wants to leave, you have to create a safety plan with her before she leaves, because again, it's the most riskiest, dangerous time for her.
Yeah. One of the things that has come up a lot, especially now in our lives, in the news, more and more we're hearing about trauma, about sexual abuse, and especially towards women, a lot of women not disclosing what's happened for years. As a specialist, someone who's working in this field, what do you feel is really important for you? One of the things when you start working with someone?
I think it's providing that space. It's that space, hearing their story without judgments, without assumptions. These survivors have usually come with a lot of feelings and thoughts of what people would think, what people would say. Usually they're not believed, or they've gone to a professional, or many professionals, or they've comments have been made, or their stories haven't been taken seriously. I think for any professional is just to provide that safe place, no judgment, just listening, hearing their story. I think that's the first and most important thing for these survivors.
Let me just remind everyone that I'm speaking with Vjosa Rizaj. Specialization is sexual abuse. And you work with consulting, you work with clients, you have a private practice, you also help other professionals. What are you doing to that end? Are you providing courses, consultation, but what else?
Absolutely. So yes, of course, programs, I like to call them, for survivors. I offer a few programs to help with things such as self-esteem, building their identity, having a healthy relationship with their body, a relationship with sex, relationships in general. I cover a lot of topics, and there are programs specifically designed for survivors of abuse. I also, as I've been mentioning, offer training and workshops for professionals. That's something that I've been getting into quite a lot lately. I've been doing, which has been not so great because it's been all over Zoom, but hopefully after this pandemic, we can get back to face-to-face. therapy, of course. I still have my practice. I can't let that go. I do enjoy seeing my clients, and I'm doing quite a lot of projects here and there. And my website needs to be updated with all the projects I'm doing, but I'm doing quite a lot, but all with survivors of sexual abuse and domestic violence, just to highlight.
Okay.
Yes.
And if people would like to reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
Email would be great.
Okay.
Email would be great. Yes.
Why don't you give us that email, and I'll also put it on the show notes page.
Yeah, that's great.
What's your email?
Oh, you want me to say it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, it's info at VR therapy consultancy.com.
Okay. Info
Sorry,
at
a bit long.
info at vrtherapyconsultancy.com. Okay. Again, I'll have that up at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. Yes, definitely. Vjosa, when you're working with therapists, other therapists, clinicians, for whom this is a somewhat new topic, what do you find is maybe a common misconception, a common misperception about working in this field, working with survivors of domestic abuse and sexual abuse?
I think the main one is that about men, and even I'm guilty, as you can hear, I'm saying her, woman, she. I'm not saying it, I'm not mentioning men, but a lot of therapists, clinicians, they forget men, that men experience sexual abuse, men experience domestic violence. I think that's the main one, and it's just reoccurring. And yeah, with, I think in all my trainings, all my workshops, that's the reoccurring theme that stays consistent in everywhere I go. I think that's the one. I think be open to the fact that men experience it as well, very much so. In my practice, it's actually not women it's not, I have more female clients. It's actually even. I've got the same amount of men and women. I do, yeah.
Wow,
and that's something, when I share that with other therapist, I get the same reaction. Really? No way. I actually have half. It's equal. Sometimes maybe more women, but men are up there just as much. I have a lot of men approaching me, and I think that's the main thing that I'm finding with a lot of therapists. They forget men.
Share with us an early clinical error.
I don't know if this is an error, but
mistake, whatever you want to call it.
It is. Okay. I found myself in the beginning being very accommodating, which affected me. Boundaries are good for clients. Hey, they're good. But if you have a client who always wants to change their appointment, wants to change payment date, or wants to pay you next month, not this month, and you're very accommodating, it affects you. It's tiring. You lose track. It gets all complicated. I think that was my clinical error, being very accommodating to my clients. And I had to remember that boundaries are there for a reason. It's good for them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still accommodate when I need to, when it's urgent, but I think I was too accommodating to my clients, and you have to remember boundaries is good for everyone, not just them.
Well, that example, I mean, was a lot of admin stuff. What about for your clinically? Were you clinically accommodating, working with them, or what? I'm kind of looking for a more clinical. Yeah, you don't have to be specific, but
maybe one thing I like to ask questions. Maybe in the beginning.
No judgment, Vjosa.
No.
No,
I've learned from my mistakes, and it's something I share actually, especially with survivors of abuse, which you have to be careful. I asked too many questions when I first started out, and sometimes that can be overwhelming for not just survivors, any clients. Sometimes I think that's what it is. I asked too many questions, and I realized that sometimes when you allow them to just use the space how they want to, you get more work done. But if you're filling it with questions, they're not really thinking, they're not really bringing themselves to the room because you're leading it. I think that was my era. And yeah, I
I
think so.
appreciate you
Yeah,
sharing that. And that's an
yeah, no
interesting one.
problem.
So asking questions, for example, because to satisfy your own interest in their story, because you wanted to find out more details about their story. Um,
Maybe when I reflect on it, it's just on the spot. I've never thought of it. Good question. When I reflect on it, I do think it's to get the full story, and also maybe in the beginning I was filling the space.
yeah.
I was just I was filling the space for the client because maybe I couldn't bear the silence. But as I've learned, I've experienced that it's important you don't ask too many questions. It's important that you don't overwhelm a client with questions. You let them lead. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I've never thought of it, if I'm being honest.
Now, one of the things that comes up a lot with
Mhm,
working with trauma in general, and I'm wondering what your take on this is, since we're talking about sexual abuse and domestic violence,
mhm,
is how to manage your own state
mhm,
when you do get triggered in a session.
mhm, mhm.
What things do you do to manage your own groundedness, and if and when you do get triggered, how does that come up for you?
Absolutely. I mean, coming from a culture where domestic violence is very big, in a family full of domestic violence, that part definitely I had to be very careful. It triggering me, and yes, it does trigger me. I think for me, I always rely on my supervision. My supervision always helps me. That's my space
Mm-hmm.
to get it off my chest, to explore. But that's more. Sometimes supervision is not the next day or in the evening. I have to wait a whole week or a whole month. But in the moment, I think for me, it's my self-care. If it's turning off my phone, my emails, my laptop, and just going for a walk, reading my books, or spending time with my family, it's just getting away from it, making that conscious effort.
Mm-hmm.
When it's too much, a bit unbearable, I definitely need that time away to go and reflect, to or gym, run it out of my system. But it's something that is very important in this area. It's something in my trainings that I do. I spend a lot of time talking about the self-care. And for me, again, it's a simple walk or spending time with my family or turning off all my phone, tablets, everything to just get away from it. I till this day, I still journal till this day, my own way. I journal, I do yoga, as I said, I go gym, all sorts of stuff to help me. But your self-care routine is so important when you work with these clients. Yeah.
Awesome. Now, do you work exclusively with trauma individuals, people who've experienced trauma, sexual abuse, domestic violence? Is that it? Is that the
No,
people?
no, not at
Okay.
all. That's what I specialize in, but I work with anyone, everyone, everything that is presented.
Okay.
But yes, that's a question that I get asked quite a lot. But no, I work with anyone, everything, all sorts of presenting issues. But that's sexual abuse and domestic violence is what I specialize in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's a lot of questions I want to ask you,
Please.
as we get ready to close out here. Now, for those of the listeners who are out there who maybe don't have the specialization and who are curious and want to learn more, are there, and I know it's hard to generalize and it's going to be different for every client, but
Mm.
are there certain questions or signs that you ask or you see from a client that maybe indicates to you, okay, there might be domestic issues going on here or sexual abuse going on here?
Mm, mm. Good, very good question. Very good. Something I had to put in my trainings. When you suspect or when you get signs or something's telling you that doesn't sound right, it's sexual abuse or domestic violence. I mean, questions. I don't want to contradict myself. So questions that you ask the client, you have to be very good with your questions, and you have to ask them questions such as, what is a healthy relationship to you? And usually that's the question that kind of spills it for them, that, oh, this is not healthy. He shouldn't, or she shouldn't be hitting me or saying those things to me. And with some clients, maybe it takes a few times to prompt, but usually that's the question when you get them to highlight back what is healthy, what is allowed, what isn't allowed, what is rape and what isn't rape. I think the questions you ask that client is very important, and it prompts them to think. And usually, from my experience working in this field for how many years, that's what helps them realize that it is domestic abuse or sexual abuse. Yeah.
So appreciate that. All right, Vjosa, what's the best way as we close out here? Then I'm going to ask you about a go-to book recommendation. But before we do that, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Email would be great.
Okay. And what do you want to give them your website?
Yes, that would be great, even better. So it's www.vrtherapyconsultancy.com. And my email's there, and even my phone number. But bear in mind, I'm all the way in London, so be careful. Charges may apply.
All right, we'll have that listed again at the show notes page at thetraumatherapistpodcast.com. All right, how about a go-to book recommendation from you?
Okay, I know this has been probably suggested a million times, but I have to be true to myself.
There you go.
2 books. The Body Keeps the Score. It's something I still go to this day. And Waking the Tiger. Healing Trauma. Those are my go-to books, and they helped me a lot in this field. And it's books I recommend to my clients as well.
Okay. So Body Keeps the Score by Bessel Benikoff and Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. Before we go, one more question. As you were talking, this came to me. How important is it for you when you're working with clients, again, with people who've experienced sexual abuse and or domestic violence, to trust your gut, to trust your instinct? And did that change? Has that evolved from when you started out to now?
Absolutely. It is so important to trust your gut. And I found from when I started to now, my gut is my best friend. It's literally, it's so on point. Let me just say it like that. It's so accurate that I trust it. I go by my gut before anything else. It never lets me down. And I've noticed from my clinical errors, maybe, to always follow my gut, what the client presents. My gut will always tell me if there's something I need to, wonder, or something I need to act on. Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate
but
that.
Interesting question you ask.
Well, and I say that with the understanding that there's, you have a lot of knowledge, you have a lot of education in this particular field. So, right, that's based on what? But it's also based on, when you're sitting in front of someone, another human being, you get a feeling, you get a sense, you get a somatic sense.
Exactly. Yeah. So exactly. You really do. I mean, not just with these client survivors, all clients, you get the sense. And I don't know about anyone else, but I still get those senses over Zoom. During this pandemic, all our sessions were over Zoom or Teams or whatever. But I still sense it. I think for me, if we were going into my qualities, that is one of my qualities or my strongest points. I have got a strong gut or strong instincts, and something that's been developed because I've ignored it, and then something's happened, a mistake, and then I've learned from it. But usually I would say, and that's something I say in my trainings, you get senses. You should listen, or you should pay attention to those senses you get in your sessions with clients. You really should. That's maybe some advice I would offer my fellow therapists. Yeah.
Appreciate that. Awesome. Vjosa, it's been a pleasure having you on here. I love talking to people like you who are just not only passionate about what you're doing, but the work you're doing is, so crucial and so vital for people out there. So it's an honor to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Guy. Thank you for having me. I absolutely love this podcast, and it's helped me. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being on here talking to you.
Awesome. Appreciate it. All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening and supporting this podcast. And if you'd like to join the hundreds of other therapists who are each month keeping up to date and informed and inspired about what's going on in the world of trauma, I'd love to invite you to head on over to the Trauma Therapist newsletter. That's the traumatherapistnewsletter.com.